Hello and welcome to today's video. Now, last month's mashup video, you guys kind of disappointed me. You picked Zombie Big Bird, and I might have been a little bit rough on you guys for doing that. I'm blaming you guys for this. This isn't on me. But this month, you guys have redeemed yourself. This month I get to make a Voodoo doll My Little Pony. Now, still a little bit creepy, but not as extreme as a zombie Big Bird. So, obviously, I'm going to use the old Google to get me some images for My Little Pony, but my inspiration for the Voodoo doll is my mummy Voodoo doll I got from You Do Voodoo. This is not a sponsored video. I'm just letting you know where I get my inspiration from. I bought this from her table at Ocon, so I will put a link down in the description box if you like Voodoo dolls. She does amazing work. But so I'm going to use this guy and some of the stuff she's posted on our Facebook for my references and inspiration for the Voodoo part of the Voodoo doll My Little Pony. Now, right away, I came up with the idea just to name the pony Voodoo. I know that's kind of obvious, but to me it just worked. I thought it was, cool to have this Voodoo My Little Pony. So let's get started on Voodoo, the Voodoo doll My Little Pony mashup for August 2019's mashup video results. Before I started filming, I got my supplies ready, so I've got some pink clay, some black clay, my reference pictures, my foil. I've got a little piece of burlap to use for texturing. Now I'm going to go ahead and shape my foil out for the body, and then I'm going to soften up my pink clay. Because I want to add a texture to this clay, I do want to make sure it's about as soft as I can get it. Polymer clay softens up when you warm it up. So I just soften this up, go ahead and cover my foil sculpture. And then I went ahead and added kind of like a seam line down the middle. And then I cut out a part for where I'm going to put the tail. With the body done, I'm going to go ahead and soften up some more clay for the legs. And for the horse's legs, because I want to kind of give it a little more stability while it's baking, I'm going to use foil for the insides. Lots of times for sculptures this size I wouldn't do that, but since I'm going to have the pony standing on all four legs, I want to make sure it's really sturdy while it's baking. So I just sculpted out 4 legs out of foil, and then I covered those with the Primo Sculpey pink clay. And to give it even more stability, to hook it to the body, I added some wire to each leg and stuck that in, and then I took the ball tool and blended those legs in. Now, since I've been handling a lot, I just wanted to go ahead and cover it again with the texture. One thing I almost forgot to do is to add some pinholes, because I want to have some pins sticking out of it. I want to go ahead and just kind of open up some spots for those pins to go in after it's all done. So with this part done, I'm going to go ahead and bake it according to package instructions. I'm going to let that cool, and you'll see here on the legs, they look kind of weird where they meet the body. So I'm going to go ahead and bulk that up with some more clay to give it more of a natural look. I almost think it looks kind of like those horse costumes where you have one person in the front and one in the back, and just the way the legs are. So I wanted to bulk that up with a little bit more clay so the legs look like they belonged a little more, if that makes sense. And then I just went ahead and textured that with the burlap. Now with that done, I'm going to go ahead and add some stitching. So I'm going to fill that crevice in that I did along the middle of the horse, or the pony, with some black clay. And then I'm just going to take some small pieces of clay and do some stitch work across there. So I'm just getting this all covered, and And then I'm going to cut these little pieces and just kind of not alternate them, but alternate them a little bit with like an angle. So alternate the angle, I should say. And that way it just kind of has this kind of more random, like hand sewn look instead of if it was done by a machine. And then I want to go ahead, I added one to the leg and then just one to the side here. Looks like kind of ripped and maybe got stitched back together. So one thing I want to do ahead of time before I do the head is I want one of the eyes to be a button eye. So I'm going to go ahead and make a couple buttons, just so I have a couple options, just slightly different, not a whole lot different, but I figure I'm only going to use one, and you'll see what I do with the other. But I figured it's not going to hurt to have two done here, and I could use the second one for another project. But I want to get these pre-baked so I can push those in. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add its cutie mark. The My Little Ponies have this cutie mark on their hip, and it's usually kind of represents what they are. I don't know why I know that, but I do. So for the cutie mark for this one, I'm doing kind of a voodoo doll head, and I want that pin there in the hip to go through it. So kind of represent the voodoo doll part. But while I was doing this, I kind of smushed that stitching on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and redo that. And I'm just using a Q-tip with some rubbing alcohol to kind of clean that area up so I can add that new stitching. You do want to make sure it's completely dry because it has a hard time kind of sticking to that area if there's any of that rubbing alcohol still wet on there. So now with that stitching fixed, I'm going to go ahead and bake it again according to package instructions. And once it's cooled down, I can start working on the head. So for the head, I'm just using foil again for the base. I want to get it about the right size. Obviously, it can be a little bit smaller because you're going to bulk it up with that clay. And then I'm going to go ahead and soften up my pink clay again and cover the head. And once I get it completely covered and about the shape and size I want it to be, I'm going to use a piece of wire to kind of give it a little more stability and add some liquid Sculpey there. Once the head's on the body, I went ahead and add the texture. Then I cut out a back section of the head so I have a space to add the mane. With that done, I'm just going to go ahead and touch up the texture a little bit with my burlap. And then I'm going to place the left eye, which is the button. And I just added a little bit of liquid Sculpey there and press that into place. And I'm just going through and kind of touching up some areas. Since I'm done with the pink clay, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my area and take a little bit of the black clay and roll that out for the stitching on the head. So, like I said, I'm doing something different for its right eye. And what I decided to do is do kind of like a stitched like X for its right eye. So it's just kind of like that area has been stitched shut. And then for its left eye, I have that button there, but I want to add a little bit of stitching to it. So this was very tricky to roll out very small pieces of black clay and get those into the holes that I made for the buttons. But with several tries and a lot of patience, I was able to add those and get the effect I wanted. So I did one and then I just did the other one looped over it and kind of pushed that in with these small ball tools so it looked like it had been stitched through it. Now for the mouth, I just want to do one big stitch with 3 stitches across, and then I wanted to add the stitch work to the voodoo head. That's the pony's cutie mark. So I just wanted to do a mouth, the little X for the right eye, and then just kind of a small black circle to represent a button. It's pretty small, so I couldn't really do too much. I kind of did some indentions, but they're not that noticeable. And then I had a little bit of issue with the mouth, so I touched that up. Then I went ahead and added the holes for the pins that would be in the head. And as you can see while I'm doing this, I'm using that burlap to hold the head in place so it keeps that texture on there. Alright, now we can bake this pony one last time according to package instructions. The last thing I need to do is make the tail and the mane, and I decided to make these out of yarn. Originally I was going to make them out of clay, and I thought, well, that's just silly. I'll just make them out of yarn because, I was going to sculpt the clay to make it look like yarn. and it's just a lot easier just to use yarn. So I'm cutting out the strands, and then I just take a little bit of super glue gel and put it on the edge, like the edges there, to kind of get these to stick together. And then for the mane, I'm kind of doing a double layer because I want it to be thicker than the tail. Now, while that glue dries, I'm taking the yarn and separating it on the tail to kind of spread it out more. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach the mane. So I just put some super glue gel in there and then push this in. I'm not really for sure how sturdy it is. I'm not going to test it. Now with the mane and the tail done, I can go ahead and add the pins, and that'll complete the pony. I did want to go ahead and kind of loosen up some of the yarn at the ends there. I didn't want to do it all the way like I did on the tail, but I just wanted to spread it out, kind of give it a little more wild look. And here is the finished Voodoo Doll My Little Pony mashup for August 2019. So I really had a lot of fun making this piece. It was a lot of fun to do the clay with the yarn, something I've never done before. So it's always fun to try out new things, especially when they turn out how you want them to, or sometimes even better than you want them to. So like I said, definitely really happy here. I hope you enjoyed today's mashup. If you want to vote for my next monthly mashup, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and turn on that, ring that little notification bell, bing. That way you should get an email sent to you when my videos are live, and that way you can make sure to vote on the next mashup. So the next voting will be open the first Thursday of September. And I'll have 10 choices for you to pick from, and the top 2 will get mashed up into a sculpture on the last Monday of the month. And if you want to check out my other monthly mashup videos, there is a playlist down below, so be sure to check those out. All right, we'll just give you a better look at Voodoo here. And something you can do, so I just stuck the pins in, and they stick in tight. But, if you want to make something like this, you can glue those pins in place. I wasn't worried about it because it's just something I'm going to keep. But I'll get you a better look at that texture I did. Gonna zoom in. There we go. So it's not too drastic, but it does have a nice kind of burlap texture. You can definitely see it where I added the more clay to around the legs and stuff, because I was able to press that in and hold the stuff that was already baked. That took the texture a lot better, but it still has a nice texture throughout. And it does have a few of the little strands on there from the burlap, and I've done like Jawas and stuff like this, and it kind of annoyed me when I would have to pick those off. But with this one, I wasn't really worried about it. I think that just kind of adds to it. Since she's supposed to be kind of this, even though it's pink and they're not pink, but anyway, she's kind of this burlap material that's she's supposedly made out of. Look at her stitching there. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for watching today's video, and remember, never stop creating. Bye.